All right, guys, in today's lesson, we're going to do Chapter 3 student notes, and we're going to talk about the 4 types of macromolecules found in cells. Those are your carbohydrates, your proteins, your lipids, and your nucleic acids. And each one of those types will have its own video, so there'll be 4 parts to these notes. The most common type of organic molecule found in cells is your carbohydrates, and they contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, which are the 3 most abundant molecules found in the human body. They're quick, short-term energy storage, so you get it and you burn it pretty much as soon as it comes in. Their basic building blocks of carbohydrates are your monomer section, are your monosaccharides. Mono means one, saccharide means sugar. So these are simple sugars. They have 3 to 7 carbon atoms per molecule. And one simple sugar that is a 6-carbon sugar is energy storage for your body is called glucose. You guys should all be familiar with glucose. Here is your model of it. As you can see, it is a 6-carbon. The blacks are the carbons, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the ring with the oxygen for your hexagonal ring, and 6 carbons up here. So C6H12, there are 12 yellow balls on my structure, and O6, so it's got 6 red also. If you look at each carbon, it pretty much every single one of them have an OH group attached to the top. That's the oxygen and the hydrogen. And then you've got 1 carbon in your ring. So this is glucose. This is what you eat, or what is broken down into the energy that you have for your cell. We also have a fructose, which is a 6-carbon sugar. This is found in fruits. So if you eat an apple or a banana, this is what makes it taste sweet. So here you go. This one is a pentagon ring. So there are only 4 carbons in the ring, but there are also 2 branches, one on this side of the oxygen and one on this side of the oxygen as part of the ring. It is also C6H12O6. So it has the same chemical formula as glucose, but they look different. And so when scientists write out the formulas for covalent bonds and for these carbohydrates, a lot of times they don't write the molecular formula because it's the same for a lot of them. What they'll do is they'll write the structural formula. So they have ways of drawing these that let you know which direction even the OH groups are pointing off of them, and if there's double bonds, or where the oxygen is, how many are in the ring, and so on. So they do these and draw them separately. So fructose and glucose. When you add them together through dehydration synthesis, you make sucrose, which is your table sugar. So that's your next one. The disaccharides is 2 sugars, glucose and fructose, makes sucrose, which is the sugar that you would add to like your coffee, for example. And what happens in dehydration synthesis reaction, I know this isn't part of your notes, but it's so important that you understand how monomers join together to make polymers, is a hydrogen and oxygen from one will come off, and a hydrogen from the other will come off. So if I were to remove my oxygen and hydrogen here from this one, and I were to remove my hydrogen, see how this oxygen branches off? I would remove my hydrogen, doesn't want to come off from this guy, it doesn't want to leave. Then we make water. So we have dehydrated both molecules and made water, and now we synthesize. So we have open electrons that need to bond. We have a hole right here in our oxygen that needs to share, and we have an extra spot here. So what they do is they link together, and so now I did that on the wrong one. I am so sorry. I even practiced this so I wouldn't screw it up this time, and I still screwed it up, which I guess is easy to do when I've done this for 3 times yet. So another YouTube video blooper, but I'm not going to fix it. So it actually doesn't come off the branched one, it comes off the one just to the left of the ring, or of the oxygen in the ring. So if the hydrogen would come off of this oxygen. No, it really probably doesn't matter to you guys, but I don't want to post something that's scientifically inaccurate. And then what happens is we have a link with this oxygen molecule, and so we have our fructose and our glucose now that are linked together. And it gets kind of messy here, but the oxygen, as you can see, is bonding the 2 molecules together. There's my ring for my fructose, my ring for my glucose, and I've made sucrose. So I have created a disaccharide now through dehydration synthesis. If I wanted to break this back apart, which you have to if you have table sugar and then you have to break it apart to make your energy and get glucose, what happens is the water would come back in and it would join back right where it was. So an OH group would be added to one, a hydrogen group would be added to the other, and it would split it apart. And that type of reaction is called a hydrolysis reaction. So that basically tells you how building block molecules or multi-monomers are made into polymers. And that's the same in your amino acids as well, and I'll demonstrate with those when I get to that section. Polysaccharides have many of these. These can have like hundreds of monosaccharides joined together. So polysaccharides have many sugars and they are complex carbohydrates. Starch is a form or a storage form of carbohydrates or glucose in plants, and they can have up to 4,000 glucose units. And so that's quite a bit of glucose joined together through those dehydration synthesis. And when we did the lab, we talked about how it was spiraled, and so iodine will join into that spiral and get stuck, and it will cause starch to turn purple when you add iodine to it. Starchy foods include things like potatoes, bread, cake. It's digested into glucose when it enters the blood, and then the liver converts glucose into glycogen, which the liver stores. As needed, the liver releases glucose from glycogen to maintain about a 0.1% blood glucose concentration. Cellulose is a polysaccharide found in plant cell walls, which makes it different than fungus. Fungus has chitin and its cell wall. Plants have cellulose. And that's because of the linkage between the glucose units. We can't digest cellulose, and so it passes through the digestive tract as fiber or roughage. You need to eat fiber to keep everything functioning properly and working smoothly. Chitin, spelled C-H-I-T-I-N, is a hard coating. I mentioned that it was in fungus cell walls, but it's also found in the exoskeleton of insects, crabs, etc., and in some other things in mammals. It has a nitrogen-containing group, which is attached to the glucose. So it's not just oxygen and hydrogen and carbon, it actually has nitrogen as well. So that wraps up your carbohydrates notes. Do the next section for the lipids.